we're going to kind of dive into the players and God, give me some advice about how we're building our rosters. We're going to kick it off.
For one, you want to make sure that you're looking at the positions that you're drafting, and you don't want to have. It's important in best ball not to have like all of your bye weeks in the at a position at the same stack, because you can't fix that later on. If you have all of your running backs with a bye in week 5, you are punting week 5, and that is not going to win you the championship. It's just, that's how it is. So you have to make sure that at the very least, in a perfect world, and it's not going to be a perfect world, but if everybody stays healthy, you'll be able to have the minimum number at each position every week. If you have a super flex league and you only draft 3 quarterbacks, but you don't have 2 of them with the same bye week, you have 2 of them with the same bye week, there's a week you're only going to have at most 1 quarterback, and that's going to put you at a disadvantage. So you want to pay attention more so than in redraft, where you have a month to figure it out. You can walk out of the draft and redraft with 3 of your top receivers with the same bye week. You've got a month to figure that out. But in best ball, there's no figuring it out later, and that means you've punted a week, and that puts you at a disadvantage. So keep an eye on that, for one. For two, to kind of go along with what Dan said in terms of building your roster, keep an eye on what the rest of the league is doing. If everybody's going early on wide receiver, zig when they zag kind of thing, but then that means that you probably have to take more shots at the position that you have chosen to wait on. If you take 3 running backs in your first 4 picks, you're probably getting 3 really damn good running backs. You can probably afford to wait a little bit on picking up any more of those. You may only want to carry 4 or 5, but you're going to want a lot of shots at wide receiver, because now all the top guys are gone. You have to find the spike guys at that point. So understand what's happening in drafts in your league, but then also understand how that has to affect how you construct your roster and how you build your lineup going forward in the draft.
All right. So speaking of putting that roster together, Dan, what's maybe an early round player that you're going to kind of target? Let's start with a pass catcher that maybe you have there that you're trying to build your team around. What's the guy that position that you're targeting early on?
Yeah, so kind of what Chase said, like you're paying attention to positions, but you're paying attention in a way that you can get an edge at a unique spot, right? And one of those single entry spots that you're probably playing in is at tight end. Right now, Brock Bowers, number 1 tight end on the board, should be no surprise whether it's redraft or best ball, it doesn't really matter. And right now, he's a top 15 pick according to ADP for best ball spots. This is where you can get the advantage. Here's the issue: that when you take a tight end this high, you have to make sure you bank on it, right? Because otherwise, the guy who waits on tight end, takes 3 of them in the back end, he might be able to replicate what you do if your guy winds up finishing as, let's say, a tight end 6 or less. So it's not going to do any good. So we want to take a sure shot. Well, Brock Bowers is a pretty sure shot, guys. He had the second most top 6 finishes last year, only behind George Kittle. Had the most top 12 finishes with 11 last year, and that was with the carousel of Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell. Like, I've had my issues with Geno Smith over the years, don't get me wrong, but he's a hell of a lot better than Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew 100%. Brock Bowers is going to be a feature part of this passing attack offense with Chip Kelly, who specializes in, hey, let's keep the ball in the middle and over 12 yards. Let's keep it there. That's Brock Bowers territory. Everything's looking up for a guy that we all expect to be the next Travis Kelce, the next Rob Gronkowski. Like, that's actually on the table. For once, it's not a hyperbole when we're talking about a player. That's what Brock Bowers is. And he's going to give you that edge that you need at a single entry position week in and week out, and allow you to maybe wait to take maybe one more tight end. And therefore, it offers you roster flexibility on Brock Bowers, because I don't need to take 3 if I have Bowers. I'm going to take 1 more to kind of back him up and open up a spot for another position. So if I'm looking early, I'm looking unique, I'm looking Bowers' way.
All right. Adam, how about yourself? What kind of pass catcher are you targeting, and who is that pass catcher?
In the second round, I really, really like Drake London this season. And he's someone who I think can be a featured threat in the red zone specifically, which kind of leads into, I think he's going to be consistent. I think he's going to get volume. But Penix has been known to target some big receivers in the red zone. So he's certainly someone who, despite some consistency, also has the opportunity for some pretty massive games, which are, again, always huge in best ball and huge in tournaments. So I think he gives you a little bit of both worlds, and that the floor is pretty solid, but you've got some high upside weeks kind of baked in. In the second round, I'd be really happy to leave with him, especially like over some of the guys maybe directly in front of him.
All right, so Dan's going Bowers. Adam's got London. Chase, who are you looking for in those early rounds as a pass catcher?
I'm going to stick with tight end position here that Dan talked about. And I'm going to go with the guy that's going right after Brock Bowers at the position, Trey McBride. Right now, Trey McBride's coming off the board on average. It's player number 23, which is tight end 2, right behind Bowers. Listen, he had basically the same number of looks per game as Bowers last season. Bowers had 6 more targets than he did last season, but Bowers played all 17 games. McBride only played 16 games. We all know what he did last season in terms of, points. He had almost virtually the same amount of points per game as Bowers. Bowers scored 12.2 half PPR a game, and McBride scored 12.1. After them, there is a drop-off. There is a drop-off between Kittle, McBride, and Bowers and the next tier of tight ends. So you can get yourself a good, nice advantage over the rest of the position by taking McBride early. And listen, he did it all last year with no touchdowns barely. He didn't score his 2 receiving touchdowns until the last 2 weeks of the season when it was basically everybody was done. His touchdown regression, if there's any I believe it's going to be positive regression there. I think he is still the top target on this team. Kyler Murray's a scrambler. Kyler Murray likes the tight end position. And when you've got a quarterback that scrambles and likes his tight end, that's a good recipe, I think, for getting a lot of targets. Maintaining that high target level and those high reception levels. And I got to think he scores more touchdowns this week or this year. So I really like Trey McBride there because I think you're getting yourself an advantage at that position that you can't necessarily find everywhere else.
Well, Chase, I want to back you up here real quick because you're talking about that positive touchdown regression. His expected fantasy points per game based on his usage last year was number 1 amongst tight ends at 15.6 points in half point PPR leagues, a reflection of the fact that with the way he was targeted, where he was targeted, he should have scored more. And we started seeing the lid finally get off, towards the end of the season when he was starting to score a little bit there at the end. So if there's any positive regression, which I agree there absolutely should be, I mean, Trey McBride could rival Brock Bowers as the number 1 guy worth that 23 pick. I totally agree with that.